I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart racing as the remnants of the dream clung to me like a heavy fog. The darkness of the night still enveloped my room, but I could see the shadows shift in the corners, twisting into shapes that sent chills down my spine. I ran a shaky hand through my hair, trying to shake off the horrific images that lingered in my mind. I could still taste the metallic tang of blood in my mouth, a reminder of the violence I had witnessed in that dream. Just a dream, I muttered to myself, trying to convince my racing thoughts. Nothing more. But deep down, I felt a gnawing dread that this was no ordinary nightmare. I remembered the sudden chill that wrapped around me as I stood there, witnessing my own death. The finality of it was suffocating. I got out of bed and splashed cold water on my face, leaning over the sink as I stared into the mirror. My reflection looked back at me, pale and haggard. "Get it together, Mark," I whispered, trying to summon some semblance of normalcy. I needed to focus on work, on the mundane routines that had always kept me grounded. Later that morning, I walked into the bustling office, the familiar hum of voices and the clatter of keyboards providing a temporary distraction from my lingering fear. I sat at my desk, forcing myself to dive into emails and reports, but the edges of my consciousness were still haunted by the dream. As I sipped my coffee, I overheard a conversation from the cubicle next to mine. "Did you hear about that accident on Elm Street last night?" a colleague asked. My heart dropped as the words echoed through my mind, a chilling reminder of the details from my dream. "Yeah, they said it was pretty gruesome. A guy just collapsed right there," another voice replied, sending a shiver down my spine. I felt the blood drain from my face as I recalled the exact scene from my nightmare. The sharp pain, the blood, the realization that it was my own body lying there, lifeless. "Are you okay, Mark?" my coworker Sarah asked, her brow furrowed in concern. "Yeah, just a bit tired," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. I could see the concern etched on her face, but I didn't want to burden her with my fears. It was just a dream, I told myself again, but the ominous feeling crept back in, shadowing my every thought. The workday dragged on, each ticking second amplifying my anxiety. My mind raced as I left the office, the cool evening air doing little to soothe my frayed nerves. I took my usual route home, my feet moving on autopilot while my thoughts churned. But as I turned the corner onto my street, something caught my eye, a shadowy figure lurking at the far end of the block. I squinted, trying to make sense of the silhouette. My heart began to pound again, each beat a reminder of the terror I had felt in my dream. It was as if the very essence of my nightmare had stepped into reality. "Get a grip, Mark," I whispered to myself, shaking my head as I quickened my pace. But the figure remained, a dark shape that felt all too familiar, reminiscent of the ominous presence that had haunted my dreams. I could feel my breath quickening, a rising panic that sent adrenaline rushing through my veins. I glanced back once more, but the figure had vanished, leaving only the dimming light of dusk behind. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the nightmare was not yet done with me. As I stepped into my home, the door clicking shut behind me, I couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that clung to me like a shadow. I was not just Mark Thompson anymore. I was a man who had witnessed his own death, and the nightmare was just beginning. I walked briskly down the dimly lit street, the chill of the evening air prickling my skin. The shadowy figure, a specter of my nightmare, seemed to dance in the periphery of my vision, compelling me to glance over my shoulder. Each time I did, the figure vanished, leaving behind a suffocating tension that gnawed at my sanity. My heart raced as I tried to convince myself it was just a trick of the light, a figment of my overactive imagination. But deep down, I knew the truth was far more sinister. "Get a grip, Mark," I muttered under my breath, my voice sounding foreign in the stillness. I quickened my pace, desperate to escape the weight of my fears, but the footsteps that echoed behind me were a relentless reminder of the darkness trailing my every move. I had to know if I was truly being followed or if my mind was playing cruel games with me. "Hey, Mark," a familiar voice called from across the street. It was Sarah, my closest friend, leaning against the lamppost with her arms crossed. Her smile was bright, but it did little to ease the storm brewing in my chest. "Hey," I replied, forcing a smile that felt brittle. "What are you doing out here?" "Just grabbing some fresh air. You look like you've seen a ghost," she teased, her laughter light, but it only added to the tightness in my throat. I've been having some weird dreams," I confessed, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "Like really vivid nightmares." "Nightmares? You're not a kid anymore, Mark. What's going on?" she asked, her expression shifting from playful to concerned. "I don't know. It's just, I keep seeing this shadowy figure. It feels like it's following me," I admitted, glancing nervously over my shoulder, half expecting the figure to materialize once more. "Okay, that's a little creepy," Sarah said, her brow furrowed. "But you know it's just your mind playing tricks on you, right? Stress can do that." "Yeah, but it's not just that. I can feel it, Sarah. The fear from the dream is spilling into my waking life. I can't shake the feeling that something terrible is going to happen," I said, my voice rising in intensity. "Mark, you really need to talk to someone about this. Maybe a therapist or something. It could help to get it all off your chest," she suggested, her tone gentle yet firm. "A therapist? You think I'm losing it?" I shot back, frustration bubbling within me. I didn't want to be the guy who needed therapy. I was just scared, not losing it, just overwhelmed. Everyone goes through rough patches. "It's okay to seek help," she replied, attempting to soften the blow. "Yeah, maybe," I muttered, staring at the ground as we walked together. The shadows flickered around us, and I could have sworn I felt a cold draft pass, like a whisper of something lurking just out of sight. "Seriously, Mark, you're a strong guy. Don't let this get the best of you," she encouraged, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Thanks, Sarah. I'll think about it," I said, though my mind was already racing with the terrible possibilities of what lay ahead. As we reached my apartment building, I paused at the entrance, the unease creeping back in. "I'll see you later, okay?" "Sure thing. Just remember, I'm here for you," she said, giving me a reassuring smile before heading off into the night. I took a deep breath before stepping inside. The familiar scent of old wood and dust enveloped me, but the air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. I glanced around, half expecting to see the figure lurking in the shadows. My pulse quickened as I ascended the stairs, each creak of the floorboards amplifying the anxiety thrumming in my veins. I reached my apartment door and hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The feeling of being watched washed over me, sending a shiver down my spine. I opened the door and stepped inside, closing it behind me with a quiet click. The darkness of my apartment seemed to close in, and I flicked on the light, hoping to dispel the shadows lurking in the corners. But in the stillness, I could still hear them, the footsteps echoing in my mind, a relentless reminder of the nightmare I couldn't escape. I leaned against the wall, my breath quickening, and for a fleeting moment, I wondered if I was losing my grip on reality. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts, but the shadows remained, whispering of a fate I was terrified to confront. As I stepped into the dimly lit bookstore, the smell of aged paper and dust enveloped me like a comforting blanket, yet an unsettling chill crept up my spine. I had no idea what I was searching for, but desperation had driven me here. I wandered through the narrow aisles, running my fingers across the spines of forgotten tomes. The soft creaking of the floorboards beneath my feet echoed in the silence, and for a moment, I felt like I was intruding on a sacred space. "Can I help you find something?" A voice startled me. I turned to see an elderly man with wild white hair, and thick glasses perched on the edge of his nose, studying me with keen eyes. I'm just looking," I stammered, suddenly feeling foolish. What was I even doing here? My mind raced back to the dream, the blood, the shadows. "Looking for answers, perhaps?" he asked, a knowing smile creeping onto his face. "Maybe," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've been having some strange experiences." "Strange how?" he pressed, his interest piqued. I hesitated, unsure if I should divulge the details of my nightmare. "I've been seeing things. Shadows. It's like they're following me." He nodded slowly, as if he had heard this all before. "You might want to take a look at this." He gestured toward the back of the store, where a large, leather-bound book lay on a pedestal, its cover embossed with intricate symbols. I approached cautiously, my heart pounding. As I opened the manuscript, a musty scent wafted up, and the pages felt fragile between my fingers. My eyes scanned the text, and I felt a strange pull, as if the words were calling out to me. "Bearers of shadows," I read aloud, my voice trembling. "Those cursed to experience their darkest nightmares, forced to confront the terrors that lie within." "What does it say?" the old man asked, leaning closer. "It says they must confront their nightmares to break the cycle," I murmured, my throat dry. A flicker of hope ignited within me, but it was quickly overshadowed by a wave of dread. "What if I can't?" "Many don't," he replied solemnly. "But knowing is the first step. You have to face what you fear the most." I closed my eyes, remembering the shadows that had haunted me, the feeling of being watched. But how? How do I confront something that feels so real? The man straightened, his expression serious. "You must acknowledge the fear, embrace it. Only then can you gain control." "I don't know if I can do that," I admitted, my voice shaking. "You have no choice if you wish to escape the nightmare," he stated, his tone firm. "You must believe that you hold the power to change your fate." Just then, the lights above us flickered, plunging the store into darkness for a brief moment. I felt a sudden chill, an oppressive weight in the air that made my skin crawl. My heart raced as I looked around, half expecting to see a shadow lurking in the corners. "Did you feel that?" I asked, my breath quickening. The old man nodded, his eyes widening. "Yes, it seems your presence has stirred something. Be cautious, young man." I swallowed hard, my fingers trembling as I flipped through the pages, desperately searching for more information. The words seemed to pulse with energy, and with each line I read, the air thickened. It was as if the manuscript was alive, warning me of the presence lurking just beyond the shelves. "Mark," I whispered to myself, trying to anchor my thoughts. "You're in control. You can face this." But a creeping dread settled over me as I sensed a figure looming behind me, a shadow stretching across the floor. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there, just the quiet stillness of the bookstore. Yet it felt charged, electric with an unseen force. "Are you all right?" the old man asked, concern etched on his face. I think I need to go," I stammered, suddenly overwhelmed. The flickering lights seemed to echo my rising panic, and I could feel the sinister presence tightening around me. "Remember, Mark," he called out as I rushed toward the door. "You must confront your fears. Only then can you break the cycle." I nodded, though doubt gnawed at me. I stepped outside, the cool night air hitting my face like a splash of cold water, grounding me. But the shadows still lingered, and as I walked away, I could swear I heard the whispers of the manuscript trailing behind me, urging me to face the darkness that awaited. As I stepped into my apartment that evening, an unsettling chill wrapped around me, a lingering residue of despair clinging to the air. I closed the door behind me, the click of the lock reverberating like a warning bell. I dropped my bag on the floor, but the weight of my thoughts felt far heavier. The day had been a blur of distorted faces and haunting whispers, and I could almost feel the presence of unseen eyes watching me, lurking just beyond the periphery of my vision. I made my way to the kitchen, the fluorescent lights overhead flickering as if they were as nervous as I was. My hands trembled as I poured myself a glass of water, trying to wash away the metallic taste of fear that still lingered on my tongue. I leaned against the counter, breathing deeply, but the air felt thick, suffocating. I could hear the echo of my pulse in my ears, a constant reminder of the unease that had nestled itself within me. "Just breathe, Mark," I whispered to myself, but the words felt hollow. Each breath felt like an attempt to stave off a force that grew stronger with every passing moment. I glanced at the window, the darkness outside pressing against the glass like a malevolent force. It was as if the night itself was conspiring against me. Suddenly, a chill swept through the room, and I turned sharply, convinced I had seen a shadow dart past the corner of my vision. My heart raced, and I gripped the edge of the counter for support. "It's just your imagination," I muttered, but I could hear the tremor in my own voice. The shadow from my dream, the figure that had haunted my nights, felt so close, so real. I shook my head, desperate to dispel the creeping dread. "This has to stop," I said aloud, as if speaking the words could somehow make them true. I decided I needed to change my routine to escape the cycle that threatened to ensnare me. I would take a different route to work, avoid the bookstore where I had found that cursed manuscript. Perhaps if I could just break the pattern, I could outrun the darkness that chased me. The following day, I left my apartment with an unusual sense of determination. I took a longer route, weaving through unfamiliar streets, hoping to shake the feeling that I was being followed. Yet with every step, I felt the weight of eyes upon me, scrutinizing me from the shadows. I quickened my pace, my breath coming in quick bursts, but it did little to quell my unease. At work, the atmosphere had shifted. My colleagues' faces seemed etched with malice, their laughter twisted into mocking cackles. "Mark, you okay?" Sarah asked, her brow furrowed with concern. But there was a glint in her eyes, a flicker of something dark that sent a shiver down my spine. "I'm fine," I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. I avoided her gaze, focusing instead on my computer screen, but even the glow of the monitor felt tainted. I couldn't shake the feeling that they all knew about my nightmares, my fears, my impending doom. After hours of torturous work, I rushed home, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere. But as soon as I stepped through the door, the air felt charged, heavy with an impending storm. I hesitated, glancing around the darkened room. "Is anyone there?" I called out, the echo of my voice swallowed by the silence. And then I saw it, a flicker in the corner of my eye, a shape coalescing from the shadows. My breath caught in my throat as the figure emerged, its form indistinct but undeniably familiar. "Mark," it whispered, the sound dripping like honey, sweet yet poisonous. "What do you want?" I stammered, stepping back. The figure seemed to swell, the darkness around it thickening as it moved closer. "You know why I'm here," it said, its voice a sinister caress that sent chills racing down my spine. "You cannot escape your fate. Get away from me," I shouted, panic surging through me. I turned to flee, but the figure's presence was suffocating, an inescapable shadow that enveloped me. "You are the bearer of shadows," it hissed, each word a dagger that pierced the veil of my sanity. "No, no, please," I begged, desperation clawing at my throat as I stumbled backward. The room seemed to close in around me, the walls pulsing with the heartbeat of my fear. "You're not real. You're just a figment of my imagination." But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. The figure was a manifestation of my darkest fears, a harbinger of the doom I had tried so hard to ignore. "Face it, Mark," it taunted, the voice echoing in the recesses of my mind, casting a long shadow over my soul. "You cannot run from what you are." I pressed my back against the wall, feeling the cool surface against my skin as if it could ground me in reality. "Leave me alone," I screamed, but my voice faltered, swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The figure loomed closer, and I could feel its cold breath against my skin, wrapping around me like a vice. "Embrace your fate," it whispered, the words curling around me like smoke. "Only then can you break the chains that bind you." The night was heavy with an unsettling silence as I sat in my dimly lit apartment, heart racing, mind spinning. I had finally made the decision to confront the shadowy figure that had haunted me since that first nightmare. I fished a piece of paper from my desk and scribbled down a plan, my hands shaking slightly. "If I can just trap it," I muttered to myself, "maybe I can force it to reveal the truth." I set up the trap in the living room, gathering items that held significance: an old mirror, a candle, and the ancient manuscript I had found in the bookstore. The mirror, with its cracked surface, seemed to beckon to me, a portal of sorts. I carefully arranged the candle in front of it, the flickering light casting eerie shadows around the room. "You think you can scare me?" I whispered, trying to muster some bravado. "I'm not afraid of you." As the minutes ticked by, I felt a familiar chill creep into the air. I leaned against the wall, heart thudding in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum roll heralding the unknown. It was almost as if the darkness itself was alive, swirling and shifting, waiting for a cue. "Show yourself," I yelled, surprising myself with the volume of my voice. "I'm done running." And then it happened. The temperature dropped suddenly, and the shadows twisted into a form, a figure cloaked in darkness, its edges blurred and undefined. My breath caught in my throat as it stepped closer, revealing a face that was both familiar and grotesque. It was me, but not me. Every flaw, every regret reflected in its hollow eyes. "You've been waiting for me, haven't you?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, Mark," it hissed, its voice a low, mocking echo of my own. "You've always known this moment would come. You think you can escape your fate." I backed away, heart pounding, but the figure remained resolute, its presence suffocating. "What are you?" I stammered, desperation creeping into my tone. "Why are you doing this?" "I am your fear," it replied, a cruel smile stretching across its lips. "I am the darkness you refuse to acknowledge. Every moment you've spent denying me has only made me stronger." "No," I gasped, shaking my head. "You're just a nightmare. I can beat you." With newfound determination, I grabbed the manuscript and held it up like a shield. "The book says I can confront you, that I can break this curse." The figure laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the room. "You think words can save you? You are bound to me, Mark. Your doubts, your regrets, they feed me. You can't escape what you are." I clenched my fists, summoning every ounce of courage I could find. "I won't let you control me. I am more than my fears." I could feel the heat of the candle flickering behind me, illuminating the darkness just enough for me to see. I lunged forward, my heart racing as I tried to push through the suffocating dread. "Irid, I shouted, willing myself to embrace the light instead of the shadows. For a moment, the figure wavered, its form flickering like a dying flame. But then it surged back, stronger than ever. "You can't fight me with bravado, Mark. I am your past, your future. I am everything you wish to forget." I stumbled back, the weight of its words crashing over me. Memories flooded my mind. Mistakes, failures, moments I had buried deep within. "No!" I screamed, shaking my head, trying to block them out. "You're wrong. I won't let you control my life any longer." In that instant, I realized something profound. The figure wasn't just an external force. It was a manifestation of everything I had ever feared and loathed about myself. The realization struck me like a lightning bolt, illuminating the darkest corners of my mind. "You're me," I whispered, the weight of understanding crashing down like a tidal wave. "You're not just my enemy. You're a part of me." The figure paused, and for a fleeting moment, its malevolence faltered. "Yes, Mark, and you can't escape me. We are bound together forever." As I stared into its eyes, I saw not just my fears, but all the potential that lay dormant within me, waiting to be acknowledged. The battle wasn't just against an external entity, it was against the very essence of myself. And as the shadows swirled around us, I realized that escape was not the answer. I needed to confront my darkness, to embrace it if I ever hoped to find the light. As I stood in the dim light of my living room, the air felt thick with anticipation. The shadowy figure loomed in the corner, its presence so palpable that it seemed to distort the very fabric of reality around it. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I had long dreaded. "You're just a figment of my imagination," I muttered, but even I could hear the tremor in my voice. "Am I?" the figure responded, its voice a chilling echo of my own. It stepped forward, and I felt a rush of cold air wash over me, sending shivers down my spine. "I am the darkness you refuse to acknowledge, the fears you buried deep within yourself." I tightened my fists, feeling the sharp edges of my despair. "I'm not afraid of you," I shouted, though doubt gnawed at my resolve. "I've seen what you do, what you want from me. You won't control me." A low, mocking laugh reverberated through the room. "Control? You misunderstand. I am not here to control you. I am here to reveal the truth. You think you can escape your fate, but you are bound to it." With a surge of anger, I lunged forward, fists swinging. The shadowy figure dissipated momentarily, only to reappear behind me, its laughter echoing like a sinister melody. "You cannot fight what is already inside you, Mark. You must confront it, or it will consume you whole." I stumbled back, my heart racing as the figure moved closer. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, desperation creeping into my voice. "I just want to be free of this nightmare." "It's not freedom you seek, but understanding," it replied, its voice low and resonant. "You are a bearer of shadows, cursed to relive your nightmares until you embrace them." A cold realization washed over me. "Embrace them?" I echoed, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "You mean I have to accept this darkness?" "Yes," the figure hissed, its form flickering like a candle's flame. "Only then can you break the cycle. But you're too afraid to look within, to face the truth of your lineage." I shook my head, unwilling to accept what it was implying. "My lineage? What do you know about my family?" Suddenly, the room darkened, and an image flickered to life in my mind. A family photo, worn and faded. I saw myself as a child, surrounded by faces I recognized but could not name. My heart raced as I recalled the strange stories whispered by my grandmother, tales of curses and shadows that haunted our bloodline. "What are you trying to tell me?" I whispered, feeling the weight of history pressing down on me. "The curse is hereditary," the figure said, its voice now a soft, sinister caress. "Your ancestors were also bearers of shadows. They too faced the darkness, but unlike you, they failed to confront it. They succumbed to their fears, and now their legacy lives on in you." "No," I gasped, shaking my head in denial. "I can't be like them." "But you already are," it taunted. "The cycle continues, Mark. Until you confront your lineage, the darkness will linger, waiting for the moment you falter." I felt the room spin as I stumbled backward, the weight of my family's cursed legacy crashing down upon me. "No, I won't let this happen," I cried out, but deep down, I felt the creeping dread of inevitability. Just then, a voice broke through the chaos, familiar and haunting. "You think you can escape, Mark? The cycle is not broken." It was my own voice, echoing with a sinister undertone, and it sent chills racing down my spine. The shadowy figure erupted into laughter, a sound that clawed at my sanity. "You see, this is your reality. You cannot escape yourself." I stood frozen in terror, the weight of my family's past crashing into me like a tidal wave. The photo flashed before my eyes again, and I felt the threads of fate tightening around me. The darkness I had tried to reject was not just an external force. It was a part of me, woven into my very essence. As I struggled to comprehend the enormity of it all, the figure leaned closer, its eyes glowing with malevolent glee. "Welcome to your destiny, Mark. The nightmare is far from over." In that moment, I understood that my fight was not just against the shadows that haunted me. It was against the very fabric of my being. The truth I had feared for so long now loomed larger than ever, and I knew that I had to make a choice: face the darkness or be consumed by it.